Guru Charana Padma Kevalabhakati Sadma Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevalabhakati Sadma Vandamui Savadana Mate Vandamui Savadana Mate Jahara Prasade Bhai Ebhavatariya Jai Jahara Prasade Bhai Ebhavatariya Jai Krishna Prapti Hai Jahate Krishna Prapti Hai Jahate Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Kya Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Kya Arana Koriya Mane Asha Arana Koriya Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati Je prasade pure sava asha Je prasade pure sava asha Chakudan diloje janme janme Prabhu se Chakudan diloje janme janme Prabhu se Divya Gyan Rinde Prakasita Divya Gyan Rinde Prakasita Prema Bhakti Jaha Haite Avida Vinasa Jate Prema Bhakti Jaha Haite Avida Vinasa Jate Vedega Jahara Charito Vedega Jahara Charito Oh Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Lokanath Lokera Jivana Lokanath Lokera Jivana Prabhu Kara Daya Demore Padachaya Prabhu Kara Daya Demore Padachaya Images Kushu Tribhuvana Images Kushu Tribhuvana Prabhu Korodaya Dehamade Padachaya Prabhu Korodaya Dehamade Padachaya Images Kushu Tribhuvana Images Kushu Tribhuvana Guru Pande Lailo Charana Prabhupada Patita Pavana Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radhe Shyam. Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Hari Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madan Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnav Bhagavad Gita Sri Rupa Sanatana Bhakta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Hari Haraye Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama Hari Haraye Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sundara Jaya Radha Shama Sundara Shama Sundara Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Gauranika, Jaya Gauranika, Jaya Gauranika, Jaya Gauranika. Jaya Gauranika, Jaya Gauranika. Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada,
Acharya Satutta Sarasri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahams Parivata Acharya Satutta Sarasri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi ki jai. Namacharya Saraharidas Thakur ki jai. Prem se Kohon Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktavindi ki jai. Sisi Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Nuramanati ki jai. Sisi Gaunitai ki jai. Sisi Radha Shama Sundar ki jai. Sisi Krishna Balaram ki jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sisi Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Radhe Shyam ki jai. So these are a few verses from the CC Adi Leela. This is from Adi 1-2. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gaura to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. May that Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Sachi Devi, be transcendently situated in the innermost chambers of your heart. Resplendent with the radiance of molten gold, he has appeared in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no incarnation ever offered before, the most sublime and radiant spiritual knowledge of the mellow taste of his service. And this one is from Adi 1:85-89. Sri Krishna and Balaram, the personalities of Godhead who formerly appeared in Vrindavan and were millions of times more effulgent than the sun and moon, have arisen over the eastern horizon of Gauda Desh, West Bengal, being compassionate for the fallen state of the world. The appearance of Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Prabhu Nityananda has surcharged the world with happiness, as the sun and moon drive away darkness by their appearance and reveal the nature of everything. These two brothers dissipate the darkness of the living beings' ignorance and enlighten them with knowledge of the absolute truth. It is the mission of the Lord to liberate the conditioned souls. The Lord wanted to create the cosmic manifestation to give another chance to these conditioned souls who were dormant in forgetfulness. The cosmic manifestation gives the conditioned souls a chance to go back home, back to Godhead, and that is its main purpose. The Lord is so kind that in the absence of such a manifestation, He feels something wanting, and thus the creation takes place. Although the creation of the internal potency was manifested, the other potency appeared to be sleeping, and the Lord wanted to awaken her to activity, just as a husband wants to awaken his wife from the sleeping state for enjoyment. It is the compassion of the Lord for the sleeping energy that he wants to see her awakened for enjoyment like the other wives who are awake. The whole process is to enliven the sleeping conditioned souls to the real life of spiritual consciousness, so that they may thus become as perfect as the ever-liberated souls in the Vaikuntha Lokas. Since the Lord is Satchitananda Vigraha, he likes every part and parcel of his different potencies to take part in the blissful rasa, because participation with the Lord in his eternal rasa leela is the highest living condition, perfect in spiritual bliss and eternal knowledge. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu will give the morning class today, and there's also a clip and some text that you will be reading on the TV. And here are the devotees who have assisted their Guru in dressing the deities today. Shri Shri Radhesham were dressed by Mother Lakshmi Moni, Chota Radhesham by Mother Leela, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram by Raghunath Prabhu, Chota Krishna Balaram, Mother Rasa Manjari, Shri Shri Gaurnitai, Bhadra Prabhu, Chota Gaurnitai by Mother Shri Vrindavan, and the Gurus and Lord Nrsingadev by Mother Madhuri Gopi.
Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Vijana Varava Girivardhari Gopijana Varava Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivachakacharya Sukutsa Sarshi Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Satuttasar Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. ISKCON Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sisi Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Go Parimani. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to C.C. Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vinda. Reading from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 8, continuing the talks between the Lord and Ramananda Rai. Today verses 228 and 229. Aiteva gopi bhava kari angikar Ratri dina chinte radha Krishna ravihar Aiteva gopi bhava kari angikar Ratri dina chinte radha Krishna ravihar Aitaiva gopi bhava kari angikar Ratri dina chinte radha Krishna ravihar Ataiva gopi bhava kari angikar Ratri dina chinte radha Krishna ravihar Ataiva, therefore, gopi bhava, in the mood of the gopis, kari, making, angikara, acceptance, ratri dina, day and night, chinte, one thinks, Radha Krishnara, of Radha and Krishna, Vihara, the pastimes. Translation. Therefore, one should accept the mood of the gopis in their service. In such a transcendental mood, one should always think of the pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna. Text 29, I'll just do the Bengali. Siradehe chintikare tahani sevana saki beve paya Radha Krishna racharana. After thinking of Radha and Krishna and their pastimes for a long time and getting completely freed from material contamination, one is transferred to the spiritual world. There, the devotee attains an opportunity to serve Radha and Krishna as one of the gopis. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that the word Siddha Deha, perfected spiritual body, refers to the body beyond the material gross body, composed of 5 elements in the subtle astral body, composed of mind, intelligence, and false ego. In other words, one attains a completely spiritual body, fit to render service to the transcendental couple, Radha and Krishna. Sarvo padi vinirmuktam tat parat vena nirmalam. When one is situated in his spiritual body, which is beyond the gross and subtle material body, he is fit to serve Radha and Krishna. That body is called Siddha Deha. The living entity attains a particular type of gross body in accordance with his past activities and mental condition. In this life, the mental condition changes in different ways, and the same living entity gets another body in the next life, according to his desires. The mind, intelligence, and false ego are always engaged in an attempt to dominate material nature. According to that subtle astral body, one attains a gross body to enjoy the objects of one's desires. According to the activities of the present body, one prepares another subtle body. And according to the subtle body, one attains another gross body. This is the process of material existence. However, when one is spiritually situated and does not desire a gross or subtle body, he attains his original spiritual body. As confirmed by Bhagavad Gita 4.9, tattva deham punar janma naitimam eti so Arjuna. One is elevated to the spiritual world by the spiritual body and is situated either in Goloka Vrindavan or in another Vaikuntha planet. In the spiritual body, there are no longer material desires, and one is fully satisfied by rendering service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Radha and Krishna. That is the platform of bhakti. Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchite. When the spiritual body, mind, and senses are completely purified, one can render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his consort. In Vaikuntha, the consort is Lakshmi, and in Goloka Vrindavan, the consort is Srimati Radharani. In the spiritual body, freed from material contamination, one can serve Radha, Krishna, and Lakshmi Narayan. When one is thus spiritually situated, he no longer thinks of his own personal sense gratification. The spiritual body is called Siddha Deha, the body by which one can render transcendental service unto Radha and Krishna. The process is that of engaging the transcendental senses in loving devotional service. This verse specifically mentions Saki Bhave Paya Radha Krishna Charan. Only transcendentally elevated persons in the mood of the gopis can engage in the service at the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Ganandana Sarakaya Chakshurun Militam Gena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So, continuing the talks between Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya, we're now at the end of Ramananda Roy's descriptions about the goal of life. There's a couple more verses after this, but they're on the exact same topic. Can you go back to 238, Keshava? 228, sorry. The first word here, ataeva. Ataeva gopi bhava kari angakar. Ataeva means therefore. So I looked up the English grammatical definition of therefore. It's an adverb. An adverb means that it's modifying a verb, another previous action. You can't begin a story, therefore. Something has to have happened prior to that, and therefore the word therefore, aitaeva, modifies what's previously been said. So Ramananda Roy's starting his statement, therefore, means that he's concluding something, that there's a conclusion due to his previous explanation. So can you go back to 201? Yeah, verse 201. I picked out just a few because it's rather lengthy, but it'll give us an idea of what Ramananda Roy is saying therefore about. (201), and I'll just read the English. I'm going to do 201 to 206 to begin. The pastimes of Radha and Krishna are very confidential. They cannot be understood through the mellows of servitude, fraternity, or paternal affection. Previous to this statement, of course, Ramananda Roy started all the way back when Lord Chaitanya asked him, what is the goal of life? And he started with Varnashrama Vacharata. One should engage in his duties according to his nature. And he's progressed through all the different stages of Vedic duty and come to the point of spontaneous devotional service. Then he describes servitude, friendship, Vatsalya Bhav, parental love, and finally Gopi Madhurya Bhava, love and service and conjugal love. Now, after that, Lord Chaitanya said, well, if conjugal love is the goal, is the highest, what is the way to reach it? Then he started to describe the mood of the gopis, and that's what's being described here. Actually, only the gopis have the right to appreciate these transcendental pastimes, and only from them can these pastimes be explained. Without the gopis, these pastimes between Radha and Krishna cannot be nourished. Only by their cooperation are such pastimes broadcast. It is their business to taste the mellows. Without the help of the gopis, one cannot enter into these pastimes. Only he who worships the Lord in the ecstasy of the gopis, following their footsteps, can engage in the service of Sri Radha and Krishna in the bushes of Vrindavan. Only then can one understand the conjugal love between Radha and Krishna. There is no other procedure for understanding. The pastimes of Radha and Krishna are self-effulgent, their happiness personified, unlimited, and all-powerful. Even so, the spiritual humors of such pastimes are never complete without the gopis, the Lord's personal friends. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is never complete without his spiritual potencies. Therefore, unless one takes shelter of the gopis, one cannot enter into the company of Radha and Krishna. Who can be interested in their spiritual pastimes without taking their shelter? And then up to 220, Keshava. Then there's more description between those verses and this one about the nature of the gopis and how they're selfless, free from lust, free from personal motive, but simply want to serve Radha and Krishna. One who is attracted, now he'll obviously start to talk about how one follows that mood. One who is attracted by that ecstatic love of the gopis does not care about the regulative principles of Vedic life or popular opinion. Rather, he completely surrenders unto Krishna and renders service unto him. If one worships the Lord in the path of spontaneous love and goes to Vrindavan, he receives shelter of Rajendra Nandana, the son of Maharaj Nanda. In his liberated state, the devotee is attracted by one of the 5 humors in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As he continues to serve the Lord in that transcendental mood, he attains a spiritual body to serve Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. Those saintly persons who presented the Upanishads are vivid examples of this. By worshiping the Lord on the path of spontaneous love, they attained the lotus feet of Rajendra Nandana, the son of Maharaj Nanda. And this is a famous verse from the prayers of the personified Vedas from Srimad Bhagavatam. By practicing the mystic yoga system and controlling their breath, the great sages conquered the mind and senses. Thus, engaging in mystic yoga, they saw the supersoul within their hearts and ultimately entered into the impersonal Brahman. However, even the enemies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead attain that position simply by thinking of the Supreme Lord. The damsels of Braja, the gopis, simply wanted to embrace Krishna and hold his arms, which are like serpents. Being attracted by the beauty of Krishna, they ultimately acquired a taste for the nectar of the Lord's lotus feet. We can also taste the nectar of Krishna's lotus feet by following in the footsteps of the gopis. So this verse is kind of like the conclusion of the personified Vedas. If you took all the Vedas and put them into personified form and have them offered prayers to the Lord, this is their conclusion. This is similarly Ramananda Rai's conclusion. Follow in the mood of the gopis. And they're saying we can attain that state by following in that mood. So I looked up the verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam and found a very nice purport by Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur that relates a pastime spoken of by Lord Brahma in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. So this is Lord Brahma speaking, telling the story. Once, after the Vedas had elaborately praised him, the Lord felt especially satisfied and spoke in a voice whose source remained invisible. And he didn't even reveal himself he just heard these prayers by the personified Vedas, and then an ethereal voice answered their prayer. My dear sages, I'm very satisfied with you. Please, ask from me some benediction that you secretly desire. The Shrutis replied, we have developed a desire to become like the Braja Gopis of the mortal world, who, inspired by lust, worship you in the mood of a lover. The Lord then said, this desire of yours is difficult to fulfill. Indeed, it's almost impossible. But since I am sanctioning it, your wish must inevitably come true. When the next Brahma takes birth to faithfully execute his duties of creation, and when that day of his life called Sarasvata Kalpa arrives, you will appear in Vraj as gopis. On the earth, in the land of Bharat, in my own district of Mathura, in the forest of Vrindavan, I will become your beloved in the circle of the rasa dance. Thus, obtaining me as your paramour, you will gain the most exalted and steadfast, pure love for me. And in this way you will fulfill all your ambitions. Lord Brahma said, after hearing these words, the Shrutis meditated upon the Lord's beautiful form for a long time. When the designated time ultimately arrived, they became gopis and obtained the association of Lord Hare. So what Ramananda Roy is saying, therefore, one should follow this mood, this path. Therefore means that somebody else had already done it. It's been proven, the action is there, the story is there, the proof is there. Therefore, one who wants this should follow that path. That's what's going on in this particular verse. Aitaiva Karyandikar. Now, back to our position. How do we practically apply that process? Keshav, that other text, the other PDF file, the one that starts with Ahankara Evacha. This is our situation. This is a nice purport in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, texts 8 through 12. There's the list of knowledge, what considered, Krishna says, I consider this knowledge, whatever isn't this is ignorance. And one of them is to understand, to try and understand the concept of false ego and how to become freed from it. No, not that one, Keshava, the other PDF file. That's the audio. Is there only one PDF file on there? Thought I saved that PDF. Anyway, this is Srila Prabhupada's purport from that section on false ego. False ego means accepting the body as one's self. When one understands that he is not his body and his spirit soul, that is real ego. Ego is there. False ego is condemned, but not real ego. In the Vedic literature it is said, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, I am spirit. This I am, the sense of self, also exists in the liberated stage of self-realization. The sense of I am is ego. But when the sense of I am is applied to this false body, it is false ego. When the sense of self is applied to reality, that is real ego. There are some philosophers who say we should give up our ego. But we cannot give up our ego, because ego means identity. We ought, of course, to give up the false identification with the body. One should try to understand the distress of accepting birth, death, old age, and disease. So in the verse today, in the purport, the longer purport that we read previously, the whole thing was about Siddhadeha Saki Bhave, that there's an eternal body, eternal spiritual body. And that's the true nature of the self, not fully matured, not fully awakened. Our attention for most of our life is on our gross material body, the temporary manifestation, due to the covering of false ego. We think it's more important. One of the things I've been doing the last few days since I got this assignment was, at the end of the day, to try to contemplate how much time today did I pay attention to my eternal Siddhadeha, and how much time did I spend on my gross material body, its relationships, its needs, what's going on in the here and now. And it's amazing for me how the tip scales were so one-sided. So how to reconcile this and how to progress so that our attention becomes more focused on our eternal spiritual body, our eternal nature, rather than so much energy and attention being put on the material body. This is the process that Ramananda Roy is describing. Also from the Bhagavad Gita, in the very beginning, when Krishna was explaining to Arjuna how he is a spiritual soul, at the same time, although he had his duty, his realization that he's an eternal spirit soul, natveva ham jatuna samnatvam neme janaripa dehino svinyatadehe, all the famous verses about the soul. At the same time, Krishna is explaining to him that you have a duty to perform on this plane of existence. You're kshatriya, we're here to fight, and you have to do that. So this verse says, considering your specific duty as a kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles. So there is no need for hesitation. There's a nice purport wherein Srila Prabhupada explains there are two kinds of swadharmas, specific duties. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of his particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. When one is liberated, one's swadharma, or specific duty, becomes spiritual and is not in the materially bodily concept. In the bodily concept of life, there are specific duties for Brahmins and Kshatriyas respectively, and such duties are unavoidable. Swadharma is ordained by the Lord, and this will be clarified in the 4th chapter. On the bodily plane, Swadharma is called the Varnashram Dharma, or man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding. Human civilization begins from the stage of Varnashram Dharma, or specific duties in terms of the specific modes and nature of the body obtained. Discharging one's specific duty in any field of action in accordance with the orders of higher authorities serves to elevate one to the higher status of life. Where does this fit in with this conversation by Ramananda Roy? The beginning, the middle, or the end? Can anybody help? The beginning. So he's not in this particular circumstance, he's not talking about that. He's talking about one who's already been elevated. So the natural tendency, at least from my perception, for most people, is when they hear they have an eternal spiritual body, but we identify with this false ego and the false manifestation of the body that we're in. The natural tendency is, well, forget about that temporary body. I just want to pay attention to my spiritual body. But that's not what's being described by the Vedas, and it's not going to bring one to that spiritual platform. Why? Because we're so conditioned and covered by the false ego that if we try to conceive of and think of our spiritual body and our eternal nature, what we actually do is we take our baggage with us onto the plane of so-called spiritualism. we don't really go to the spiritual world simply by renouncing the material and thinking it's spiritual. There's a gradual elevation which must take place, a gradual maturity of duty, acting according to the orders of the spiritual master, the desires of Krishna, and gradually transforms one's consciousness towards that reality of the spiritual body. And the whole Vedic culture is meant to do that. When I was doing research for the Jai Jagannath book, for the book that I wrote on Lord Jagannath and the culture, I came across a really good book on Indian architecture. So we've all heard of Vastu and Shilpa Shastra, the Shastras which describe how to use space and create a mood within one's home or within a temple. So this is a nice description of the ancient science and how simply going into a temple is meant to transform one's consciousness. The Simhadwara gate, that's where Lord Chaitanya used to go. There's 22 steps. That's the Lion Gate. It's faced east. The Simhadwara gate is used as the main entrance into the temple, faces east towards Grand Road. 2 crouching lions guard the gates, and before them stands a 34-foot-high monolithic pillar known as Aruna Stamba. This single stone column supports the figure of Aruna, the sun god's charioteer, and was transferred from the dilapidated Sun Temple in Konark during the 18th century. Proceeding through the Simhadwara, pilgrims climb 22 steps called Vaisha Pachata. The steps are considered sanctified because Lord Jagannath, Balaram, Subhadra, and Sudarshan Chakra travel over them as they go to and from the temple for Rath Yatra. After climbing the steps, the devotees enter an inner compound. Arayan architecture is ornate on the outside, but simple within. While approaching the innermost sanctuary through various halls and past the many pillars and carved panels, a devotee is subtly influenced by the sacredness of the architecture. He finds himself enclosed with the Supreme Lord in a dim, soothing atmosphere. His eyes find rest after the fierce light of the day outside. Not only is the lighting dim, but the air is filled with the scent of flowers, burning oil lamps, and incense coming from the sanctuary. Gradually his mood calms, and his spiritual feelings are awakened as he approaches the deities. Once inside the temple, the devotees see in the distance the 7 forms on the Ratna Vedi altar. Lord Jagannath, Balaram, Subhadra, Sudarshan Chakra, Madhava, Lakshmi, and Saraswati. As pilgrims pass through these various halls, they eventually enter the Jagamohan. Here Lord Chaitanya would stand behind the Garuda Stamba, a pillar in the hall with Vishnu's bird carrier atop it. Most devotees, however, continued to the Garbhagriha sanctuary through the passageways to circumambulate the Ratna Vedi. According to Vedic scriptures, the doors and the deities are closely related. The divinity to whom the temple is dedicated resides in the Garbhagriha, the inner sanctum of the dwela. Stationed below, to the left and right of the door jambs, are the dwarpalas, gatekeepers. The doors are the sacred entrance through which man enters into the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To enter such a divine atmosphere properly, a transformation of consciousness must take place. It is believed that only when a devotee has acquired a celestial spiritual body is he qualified to pass through into the company of the Supreme Lord. This transformation or regeneration is promoted by the divinities carved in the door jambs. So it's not that someone just walks up and takes darshan. Darshan means to see. Not just that we see the Lord, but that he sees us. And when he sees us, he doesn't just see a material body. He sees our divine spiritual body. So part of the practice of Vedic culture when going to see the deity is to meditate on one's spiritual body as we enter the temple and take darshan. Similarly, when we put on tilak, when we did our japa workshop, it's really nice practice to sit down And while one's chanting, at least this is my practice, and we suggested it to others, even in your mind, there's like manasa snan, you take bath, sit down on the banks of the Ganges or the Jamuna or Radhakund, and put tilak on your body, and think of the Lord and your spiritual identity. And then go before your spiritual master, offer a flower garland, bow down before him, and meditate on your spiritual nature. We don't have that other. So from the Bhakti-Samrita Sindhu, there's a nice verse which synthesizes these two concepts of the material body, the spiritual body, and how the practitioner is supposed to follow this procedure. Seva saraka rupena siddha rupana chatrahi tadbhava lipsuna karya vraja lokanusarata. Following after the inhabitants of Braj, one should perform service in one's physical body and in one's siddha body with a desire for a particular bhava. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur's purport. One performs service with a saraka rupa, the present body, and with the siddha rupa, the body which is suitable for serving Braja Krishna in a particular type of rati or bhava one desires, and which appears through inner contemplation with a desire for particular rati directed to one's beloved Krishna situated in Vrindavan, tadbhava lipsuna. One should follow after the dear devotees of Krishna such as Radha, Lalita, Vishaka, Sri Rupa Manjari, and those following after them, persons such as Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatana Goswamis, Vraja Lokarasa Ruta. Accordingly, one should perform menial service in one's siddha rupa, following after the examples of Sri Radha, Lalita, Vishaka, Sri Rupa Manjari, and others. In one's physical body, one should perform services using one's body, following after persons such as Sri Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, situated in Braj. By the word Brajaloka, one should understand persons situated in Braj, Radha, Chandravali, and others. Following after them, one should perform service using one's physical body also. Some modern persons following the Saumarya Sampradaya think that since persons such as Radha did not perform services such as surrendering to a guru, following Ekadasi vows, and serving Shalogram, Shela, and Tulsi, we need not do these activities. That idea is defeated here. Jiva Goswami in his commentary has explained this with the words Vraja Lokas Tatra Krishna Preshta Gyanas Tat Anugatas Cha Tad Anusarata. Vrajaloka means those dear to Krishna, like Radha, etc., and persons following after them, Sri Rupa, so one should follow in their footsteps. So, we're at a place where we understand, or we're hearing about, a very high elevated topic of siddha and acting in one's spiritual body, following in the mood of the gopis. But yet at the same time, we're in material bodies, we're in the material world, we have all our attention, which we focus on what's going on here. How do we balance the two? Gradually, the process of Krishna consciousness should bring us to the point where our attention transforms from the material world through its experiences in a service mood, and especially later in life, that's what renunciation means, to give up that attention to family, society, and duties which were required earlier in life, and become more absorbed in one's spiritual eternal nature. And what gradually happens is that that example is given, I think Vasudev gave the example to Kamsa, since we're coming up to Janmashtami time, that one puts the foot down and then lifts the back foot up according to one's nature. What we're meditating on, what we pay attention to, will develop a future So if we're thinking still about this material world and all its banyan tree attachments, then we'll come back here because that's the desire that we will develop. Whereas on the other hand, the verse for today is 220. Therefore, one should accept the mood of the gopis in their service. In such a transcendental mood, one should always think of the pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna. After thinking of Radha and Krishna and their pastimes for a long time, and getting completely freed from material contamination, one is transferred to the spiritual world. There the devotee attains an opportunity to serve Radha and Krishna as one of the gopis. So Keshava, we'll take a minute now and listen to the lecture by Srila Prabhupada explaining about these different opportunities of what energy to serve. And there's a text to that also, Keshava. Okay, he's going to put on the microphone. In the text, Srila Prabhupada's explaining that Tatastha, the tiny jiva, has the opportunity to serve either the spiritual energy or the material energy. The same principle is here. Serve the material body and everything related to it, or the eternal spiritual body in its service to Radha and Krishna.
So, Asivaya, Ayam,
Text.
what is our business at the present moment? We are serving Maya in different varieties. The Maya has got three modes, Sattva, Raja, Tama, or mixed. Just like the color displayer, very expert in mixing color. Actually, there are three colors, blue, red, and yellow. This blue, red, yellow, the color displayer, they mix 3 into 3 equal to 9, 9 into 9. It becomes 81. So, in this material world, we living entities, we are colored in this way. 3 into 3, Sataraja Tamagun, 3 into 3 equal to 9, and 9 multiplied by 9, 81. So the 81 colorful living entities are there. Somebody is human being, somebody is demigod, somebody is cat, somebody is dog, somebody is serpent, somebody is tree, somebody is plant. There are 8,400,000 of forms of life. And that is our service. Just like the dog is barking, he is thinking that he is dog, so his business is barking. That means serving the laws of material nature. Similarly, somebody is serving in some way, somebody varieties. Because we are not meant for this service. We are, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches, Jive Sarup hoy Nitya Krishna Da. Our main business is to serve Krishna in Vrindavan, in Goloka Vrindavan. Somebody is serving Krishna as his friend, cowherd boy. Somebody is serving Krishna as gopi, as lover. Somebody is serving Krishna as father and mother, Mother Jasoda, Nanda Maharaj. Somebody is Krishna's friend, as servant, as tree, as water, as flower, as land, as cows, as calf. So many ways. This is our business. But somehow or other, we did not like to serve Krishna. Therefore, we have been put into this service of Maya in three modes of nature. Just like a criminal. A criminal does not like to obey the laws of the state. Therefore, a criminal is put into the prison house and he is forced to abide by the law of the state. The state laws are there, either outside the prison house or inside the prison house. But one who does not obey ordinarily outside the jail, the orders of the laws of the state, he is put into the prison. But he cannot avoid the laws of the state. That is not possible. Because a citizen means he must abide by the laws of the state. Similarly, we are part and parcel of Krishna. Mamaivangsha jiva bhuta. I have explained many times. So as soon as we deny to render service to Krishna, immediately the Maya is there, captures. All right, come here, you serve me. This is the position.
Okay. So he's same concept from the beginning of Krishna consciousness to the end of Krishna consciousness, from the beginning of Ramananda Roy's descriptions of what to do and how to serve to the very end are all very harmonious, progressive, and intricately woven like a huge network. So it's up to us as each individual person to pick and choose and determinedly follow our path. There are many books which explain. The other day, Sukadamataji was talking about Leela Smaranam. There are two types of Krishna Leelas. One is called Nainitika, which means it's an occasional action. And the other one is Nitya Leela, which means it happens all the time. So, Krishna book, Srimad Bhagavatam, those Leelas are Nainitika Leelas. They're activities that happen occasionally. Killing Aghasura doesn't happen 24 hours. It's not something that happens every day in each of Krishna's manifestations in a universe. He doesn't kill Aghasura every single day for 125 years or whatever like that while he's here. So those are one type of meditation. But there are other books. Rupa Goswami wrote one stotram of 8 verses only called Radha Krishna, forget the name of it. And it described the 8-fold daily pastimes of Krishna. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami took those 8 different descriptions and expanded on them and told each story of what happens at a particular type of day. If we take Nagaraj was talking about this a couple of weeks ago when he gave class, called Asta Kaliya Leela. The Asta means 8. Asta Kaliya, 8 times. So if you take 24 hours divided by 8, you get approximately 3-hour intervals, 3-hour sections. First section is when Radha and Krishna wake up and spend some time together before having to go home, because the day will begin and everybody in the village will wake up. So at the end of that period, they go home. The next period is when Krishna wakes up in his bed, Mother Yasoda comes in, and then they wake up and they bathe and they start milking cows and they have breakfast. Then the next section is where Krishna gets ready and he starts to go out to herd cows with Balaram, and all the cowherd boys come out from their homes and everybody gathers together, and then there's the 3 hours of them starting to go out and starting to herd cows and play games. And then there's the noon pastimes where Krishna slips away and he meets Radha at Radha Kund and performs his Leela there. Then he gets back with the cowherd boys in the early afternoon. And in this way, the whole day becomes a meditation. And Govinda Lilamrita is the book that he wrote. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur wrote a book called Krishna Bhavanamrita, which describes it in a little bit different way, which means it's not that each individual conceives of these pastimes and their involvement in it in the same way. Each individual may even be shown different leelas. Another famous one is Shamananda Prabhu. I think we've all read maybe Lives of the Vaishnava Saints or know the story, how Shamananda was sweeping with his physical body. He was sweeping the kunj. But in his Siddha Deha, he was meditating on the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and then Radharani's ankle bracelet fell off, and then he actually found it in the physical world, and how these interrelate sometimes. There's a book by Kavi Karnapur's son, by Kavi Karnapur, Shivananda Sen's son, called Krishnaika Kamudi. There's Krishna Bhavanamrita, Jaiva Dharma by Bhakti Vinod Thakur, talks about there's a whole descriptions of that. Bhajan Rahasya is a book that was written in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's later life. And what he does is he takes these 8-fold daily pastimes and he links them with Lord Chaitanya's Shikshastaka. There's also 8 prayers. So each prayer relates to a particular time of the day. So what happens to a person who's meditating on this type of life, on this type of topics? They become totally absorbed in that world to the point like Gorakishore Das Babaji. Where they're completely absorbed in their Siddhadeha. And this again is the recommendation by Ramananda Roy in this verse. Siddhadeha Chintakari Tahani Sevana Saki Bhave Paya Radha Krishna Charan. That actually, even though they are males, like Lord Chaitanya, he's a male, but he's in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy is unique in this way, that even males are inspired to meditate on their female form and their male form. Rupa Goswami is also an associate of Lord Chaitanya in his manifested Leela. So some devotees have 2 spiritual bodies, a male spiritual body and a female spiritual body, simultaneously. It's all rather very esoteric and mystical, but these are the topics of very elevated nature, because Ramananda Roy is at the end of his descriptions. It's not that you can throw out the baby with the bathwater and not disregard all the previous talks. They all link together just like that yoga ladder. There's a staircase. All the steps lead up to that higher plane. So any questions or comments to Nastami Prabhu?
the Siddha Deha fully manifest at the stage of liberation. So, correct? But then the Siddha Rupena, the Siddha Rupa, that the Raganuga Bhakti practitioner meditates on in this Siddha Rupena that's serving Krishna in a particular mood. How does he understand that Siddha Rupena, like prior to the stage of liberation, on the sadhana platform? How does he know that?
Okay. Nice example I actually did. Where's my paper?
I know, like in some traditions, that's revealed by the spiritual master.
Yes. I found the quote from the Brahma Samhita. I don't know what happened to my paper. I just had it. Where it's described. This is the verse before Chintamani Prakara Sadma Shukalpa Viksha. That starts with text number 29 in the Brahma Samhita. This is verse 28. Fraya prabhudotha vidhir vignata tatvatsagara tustava vedasadena strotaranena keshavam. Enlightened by the recollection of that Gayatri, embodying the 3 Vedas, Brahma became acquainted with the expanse of the ocean of truth. Then he worshipped Sri Krishna, the essence of all Vedas, with this hymn. Purport. Brahma thought thus within himself. By the recollection of the Kama Gayatri, it seems to me that I am the eternal maidservant of Krishna. Though the mysteries in regard to the condition of the maidservant of Krishna were not revealed to him, Brahma, by dint of his self-searching consciousness, became well acquainted with the ocean of truth. All the truths of the Vedas were revealed to him, and with the help of those essences of the Vedas, he offered this hymn to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Sriman Mahaprabhu has taught this hymn to his favorite disciples inasmuch as it fully contains all the transcendental truths regarding Vaishnava philosophy. Readers are requested to study and try to enter into the spirit of this hymn with great care and attention as a daily regular function. The way I understand that is that Brahma didn't understand his Siddhadeha. He didn't understand the Ekadas Bhava. He didn't understand what his gopi form was, what color clothes he had, who his mother and father were, what his daily services were. But he understood, I'm the servant of Krishna. Ainanda tanija kinkaram. I'm a kinkari. I'm a servant of Krishna. And by his continued service, Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam pratiporvakam, Vidami buddhi yogam tam, yenamam upayanti te. Gradually, these things were revealed to him. His life is much longer than ours. And he even comes as an incarnation of Haridas Thakur in association with the Lord's Nitya Siddhas and associates and the Lord himself, and follows that process. It's a very gradual, even we saw with the Upanishads. It said in the next life of Brahma, you'll appear in Braj. So it's not something that manifests in our time period in a very rapid manner. Nature takes time for things to grow. Look at trees. A redwood tree, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. If somebody went to it when it was 5 years old and thought, wow, when is this thing going to grow? It would be too quickly. It's a slow growing experience for that tree. So our relative time experience is difficult for us to kind of relate with a longer development. But my understanding is that this whole process of worshiping Krishna in the mood of the gopis gradually reveals that to someone. Just as the elements in a seed manifest as it expands and manifests its energy. Nothing extraneous. Nitya siddha Krishna prema sajjikabunai shravanada sudachiti karaya udoy. It doesn't come from someplace else. It's not somebody gives you that. Nobody's going to give you your siddha deha. You don't give a tomato plant its shakti to become a tomato. It's inherent in the seed. So each living entity, Mamayvamsa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, is an eternal fragmental part of Krishna. And everything is within that entity. And as it matures in devotional service, what is it? The Shakti, the potential energy that's there, gradually manifests. Ramanya Prabhu?
Thank you. Very wonderful lecture. It's difficult to cover this high philosophical topic in 1 hour.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. Prabhupada gave so many different lectures and talked about it. And he also gave us warnings about, not to cross the line, because unfortunately we have experiences in our society. Some, I hate to use the word Sahaya tendencies, like when this devotee is asking him questions, how Siddha Deha, Siddha Pranali, Prabhupada got really disturbed about it. He said, why you want to know? First you chant Hare Krishna without offenses, and then you talk about Siddha Pranali. That will come after when you chant without offenses. On the other side, Srila Prabhupada is the one, practically speaking, the only acharya that established the worship of Radha Krishna all over the world. He installed Radha Krishna deities all over the world. So definitely he's in the mood of Radha Krishna. Prabhupada is Nitya Siddha.
Thank you.
And all those topics, high philosophical topics like Ramananda Rai and 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they're Nitya Siddhas. They're Paramahansas.
The only reason I spoke on it, Prabhu, is because it's the topic in the book.
No, I know. No, we have to read those things. Prabhupada is, he's translating the Vedas, right? He's translating from Sanskrit
to
English.
He gave it.
He's translating, he's writing books, so he has to speak about these topics. But at the same time, he is telling us to be careful. We have to talk about those topics, but the very high elevated topics.
Thank you very much.
We have to be careful at the same time, that's Prabhupada's mercy.
Yes.
He's talking about, but he's telling us to be careful. In one lecture, he said, why are you trying to become a gopi? You should become the dust of the lotus feet of the gopis, the dust. He said, that's the humble position. become a dust of the Lord's feet of the gopis. And then, well, you know, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sikshakshtakam, a feel of separation of Krishna. You know, like Yugajitan Sarvan, you know, like too many yugas, like 12 yugas or more, you know, feels the separation of Krishna. And originally, the spiritual master was giving you the Siddha Deha Siddha Pranali at the time of the initiation, up to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he stopped that. And our Guru Parampara, Srila
I kind
Prabhupada.
of didn't want to go in. I don't
Yeah.
think we need to go in.
No, that's what I'm saying. They don't give it to us
Right.
at the time of the initiation because...
Another topic.
Exactly.
Yeah. Radha Damodar Prabhu?
Prabhupada was saying that there's 8,400,000 species of life, and that's, you know, a number which we can't imagine. But as when the scientists, they classify all the different species in. Is each species a form of life, such as is a maple tree and a redwood a different species of life, or are all trees? one species
Are
of
they
life?
just all trees? No, I think they're different. There are different species, certainly.
Different forms, but forms of life.
Yes.
So-
It's not that just all trees are a species of trees. We can categorize them like that, but my understanding in the Vedas is that there are many different species of trees, many different species of frogs, many different species
And
of
all
fish.
those count as one form of life. And then there's many more.
Jai Krishna Balaram.
And does this refer only to this little universe that applies to us, or to the entire creation?
I think it's each universe.
So 8,400,000 species in this universe.
Yes.
Maybe more in some other universe.
Not sure because it's a Vedic text, so I don't know about that.
Okay, thanks.
By the way, that lecture is from our Bhagavad Gita course, and we were studying the three modes of material nature. So when I came across that, it fit with what we are reading here. Jai.
It burns waste matter and it extracts nourishment and turns it into living tissue to build our body. So Bhakti does the same thing. Burns the anarthas and the material impressions of the person, and it takes the nourishment and fills our spiritual body. So every day as we're practicing, even though you're not so aware of it, our spiritual body is developing.
Yeah, thank you very much. Next example. I don't think the microphone was on the roof.
I'm a little disabled, a little retarded, and I miss a lot of what we're talking about. But it feels right. One thing, I was in Utah when Prabhupada was there. Prabhupada was fanning him, and Prabhupada said, chant 16 rounds a day. For you. And help me push on this one. And I'm not flying. This lifetime. I heard that.
He said that he was right next to Srila Prabhupada and Ramananda was standing there. And he looked at Ramananda and said, chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regular principles, help me push on this movement. And I'm not flattering you. You'll go back to the spiritual world at the end of this lifetime. So, Srila Prabhupada, you got it. Thank you. But then